Guten Erev Shabbos, dear Chabura, Kol HaTorah Kula. We're pre-recording this, and we're about to step into two very special days. Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz, the days that Loi Oisik B'vad Gal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tremendous simcha for every Yid. The Frierdiker Rebbe was released from prison following his heroic act of Mesiras Nefesh on behalf of all Yid and continuing Yiddishkeit in the hardest of circumstances. And this is our inspiration and actually marching orders for us. And the fact that we do Mesiras Nefesh has to be Miterech Chava, and the Eibishter wants us to enjoy the Mesiras Nefesh, but it means Zechiber Geb, giving ourselves over totally. And we are about to begin the 9th Perek of Hilchis Tefilla, where the Ram discusses in Sefer Ava all the mitzvahs, the Chachamim anchored into our day in the Torah, and the Eibishter anchored into our day, so we remember our love for the Eibishter. And the primary one is davening. That's where we connect, as we started from bringing about yesterday, a Yid and a Siddur. That's their two inseparable partners. And the Rambam today is actually going to zero into the Siddur itself, the Seder of davening, and specifically davening with a minyan. Zok the Rambam. Halach Aleph. Seder Tfilas HaTzibur Kachu. The way the minyan davens together is the following. Bashachar in the morning, Kola Om Yoshvim. Ushliach Tzibur Yored Lefnei Teva. The Shliach Tzibur goes down before the Teva, and Lashon goes down. Is as we said, Mamakin Krasich Hashem. He was in a lower place in the shul, quite literally. And the Chazzan would go down while everyone's sitting, and they would start davening. From the Rambam's perspective, the minyan begins when the whole Tzibur concluded the bracha of Yishtabach. Then the Chaz, that's where the minyan began. The Chazzan finishes Yishtabach and then starts Kaddish. He stands in the middle. That means the Amud should not be on one side of the shul extremities, rather in the middle of everybody in the front. And he says the Kaddish after Yishtabach, and the entire congregation answers Amen, and Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach. May the great name of the Eibishter be gebenched forever and ever. And they answer this as Chachamim said to do b'chol koichon, with their entire might. And as Rashi explains on Gemara there, b'chol koich kavanaseh, all is focus and intent. V'oinin amen b'seif kaddish, and they answer the final amen after the kaddish. And then he says v'oin v'achakach oimer, the Chazzan says baruch hu Hashem baruch. Together with me, let's bless the blessed Eibishter. Behem oinim, they respond, Baruch Hashem HaMevorach La'olam Bad. May the blessed God be blessed forever and ever. Now, Umaschil Poiris Al Shema B'Kol Ram. And then he starts the next portion of davening. He concluded Psuki the Zimra with Yishtabach. That's the after bracha of, as the Rambam explained, two brachim ago in Perek Zayin. The after bracha after the Psuki the Zimra, the Kapitlach of David HaMelech. And now he's starting Birkas Krishma, and it's done with Poiris Al Shema. So one person, the Chazzan leads the Birkas Krishma, and they answer Amen, and they're Yotze. Someone that knows how to read Birkas Krishma on his own, Velikros, and to read Krishma, he reads together until he reaches the final after bracha of Shema, which is Gal Yisrael, and then they shtel Zach Shemon Esrei. Everyone right away gets up. Why? Because we said Masmich and Gol Tefilla. Right after Gal Yisrael, they stand up and they say the Shtila Shemon Esrei, Mispalim Belachas silently. Now, the 18, 19 brachas. Umi Sheni Yidel Espalel, someone that doesn't know how to daven, and he's going to eventually be Yotze with the Chazzan, saying Chazar Sashatz. Oimid V'shoisik. He also has to stand up because you're not allowed to sit in Dal Damas of a Mispalel. And he's silent. Ad Shispalel Shliach Tzibur B'Lachash Im Shar Am, until the entire the Chazzan with the entire congregation gay nice they finish the Shtil Shmon Esrei. The Chol Meshigmer Tefillah Im Atzibur. Anyone that concludes davening with the Tzibur, interestingly, Rambam connects them. Yafsiya Shol Psiyas Lachayr. He takes 3 steps back. V'Yamay B'Makam Shigiel V'Eishi Yafsiya. He should stop in the place where he reached after taking 3 steps back. You don't want to go forward as if you didn't walk away from the Eibishter. You don't want to walk off as if you're running away. Stand there. And v'achar she'efseh shliach tzibur shalosh psiras la'achayro. V'yamoid, after the Chazzan also stellt Shemona Esrei, he goes the 3 steps back. Maschel misbal b'kol ram. He starts davening aloud mitchilas habrachas from the beginning of the Shemona Esrei. Lahoitzi es mishen mispalal, because he wants to be moitzi all those that don't know how to daven. And everybody, including those that have already finished Shemona Esrei, they're silent and they answer Amen on all his brachas. Whether they're the ones that did not fulfill the obligation and they're being yotze with the Chazzan, or those that did. Halacha Dalet. Ve'omer kedusha bebracha shlishis, in the third bracha, which is in the third bracha, which is Akel HaKadosh, we say Nakdishach, the beginning, and he calls it Kedusha. Once he reaches that, he didn't say yet Nakdishach, but once he reaches the point on which they would begin Nakdishach, everyone at that point gets permission to walk back from the place where they stood. They walked back 3 steps, and now they walk front, and then to the place where they initially davened Shemona Esrei. When the Shliach Tzibur, the Chazzan, reaches Moedim and he bows, everyone also bows just a little bit. He has to bow, full bow, that all his discs, as Rambam says, but the other people, they're just joining. They just don't want. They want to indicate that they're not separating themselves from the tzibur, or don't believe Chas v'shalom in what he's declaring. So they bow a little bit. And they also say, we acknowledge and we bless the Eibishter. We thank the Eibishter, the God of all flesh, the one that formed us and that formed the entire universe from beginning of creation. Brachas v'aydois, blessings and praises, to your great and holy name, over the fact that you give us life and sustain us. In the same way we ask the Eibishter to continue giving us vitality and life, and you grant us. Gather our exiles to your holy courtyards, in which case we'll properly be able to guard your commandments, to serve you, to serve you in truth, and to fulfill your will with our complete heart. And for this we thank you. And they conclude. Now, the chol oimer moedim moedim, if he doubles over the word moedim, mishatkanais, everyone quietly shuts him down, stops him, because that may indicate that he believes in more than one deity. Halacha, hey, once the Chazzan concludes the entire davening, yeshe v'yipol al pana v'yita ma'at. He sits down and then tilts to the side, falls towards his face a little bit, not to show as if if it's a ritzbas abanan, that he's being mishtatech and the like. Now, hu v'chol tzibur, everybody, v'yischanin. You should know that Rambam used the word v'yischanin very loosely. Over here it could mean tachnon. Afterwards we'll see it could mean other things. V'yischanin v'hu noifel. Now, v'yeshev, after he finishes we finished his tachanonim, he sits up straight, hu v'shara and he continues saying out loud, but continues tachanonim sitting and not tilted. And then only the Chazzan gets up and says a second kaddish. Again, from the Rambam's perspective, the first kaddish he counts is not the kaddish d'Rabbanan that we say, our minhag to say before Haidu. Rather, the Rambam considers the first Kaddish what we do by Yishtabach. You can say anytime you learn Torah, you say Kaddish afterwards. So he's not counting that. This second Kaddish is a Chatzi Kaddish. That's one of the reasons why we say this Kaddish is because some people need to leave. They shouldn't lose this opportunity to sanctify the Eibishter's name and say and answer Amen. So we say this Chatzi Kaddish, but the full Kaddish just gobbles after Uvolitzin. So the Rambam says, he says the second Kaddish, they respond to the Kaddish in the same way they did at the first one. Amen and Amen Yeshua. He says the Eibishter is compassionate, and that Nusach v'tilu david, he says Ashrei hu oimed ve'im yoshvim. The Chazzan still stands there sitting. V'heim koirim imay, they say together with him Ashrei v'oltzin. Now I want to say the Rambam is going to call it Seder Hayom because in the time of the Kohanim, after davening, the one leading the congregation would teach them Torah. The only remnants we have of that Seder Hayom that he taught them a portion of the day is Uvalatzin, that we teach. The Eibishter's name should be Kaddish La'olam right? We translate we read and translate. That's called Seder Yom. That's what they do now. The Rambam doesn't make mention right now of Shir Shel Yom, which is included in the Rambam's count of Tachanunim. Now, so he says, he finishes that whole Seder Kedusha. They respond. And then he reads this Seder Kedusha Targum, and reads how it's translated. But the Targum that itself also he translates in order to ensure the congregation understands it. Halacha Vav. The psukim that come before and after the Kaddish, which is by us essentially the whole Uvalatzin. Heiman Seder Kedusha. It's the Seder Kedusha. V'achakach meschanin b'divrei tachanunim. He supplication. He begs by the Eibishter with psukim racham v'imer. Psukim of kindness. V'imer Kaddish says another Kaddish, and this is the Kaddish Basa Kaddish Teskabel, where we conclude and ask the Eibishter Teskabel Sloisin of Usain. Eibishter should accept our davening. V'cholam oinim kedarkam v'niftarim. The rest of the congregation they answer as they would for any Kaddish, and they go home. Now, if someone started going happy while he's praising the Eibishter, he started adding his own titles and his own shvachim, it's going to start being a problem. As we described earlier, that if a person adds to the shvachim, then it seems like you're doing based on your understanding, not just because that's what Moshe Rabbeinu instituted, and therefore you have to do much more than what you understand, otherwise it's minid b'malchus. So don't go happy on your own, and if you do, mashkit and as we'll see. Another case is a person says he wants to demonstrate the Eibishter's rachamim and chooses a mitzvah. That mitzvah is lav dafkar for rachamim. So we're going to silence him. If he said while he's praising the Eibishter, he says, the one, meaning the Eibishter, that has compassion on kan tzipor, on a nest of birds, not to take the children when not to take the mother when the children are still there. Not to take the children when the mother is still there. The Eibishter has compassion that prohibited shechting a mother and a child, saying that he should have compassion over us. So why is that? The decree of the Eibishter. They weren't specifically given for rachmanis. If it was for compassion purposes, the Eibishter wouldn't have permitted us to shecht altogether. He shouldn't start adding his own descriptions of the adjectives to the Eibishter and say, that's what we all say, the great and awesome and mighty God. So he adds the v'chozok, v'ametz, v'izuz, the mighty one and the brave and all this stuff. You don't have the ability to reach the end of and the limit of all this racham Eibishter. We are just repeating what our Chachamim gave us the little bit of understanding that's what we say from Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, so all this was the Seder Tefillah of Shachris. B'mincha, halacha ches. He starts Asher V'Sachar Tefillah David, and then Koirahu v'Ami Yoshev. This they say while they're sitting. Then the Shliach Tzibur gets up and says Kaddish v'Im Oimdim Achra v'Oinin Kedarkam. They stand up, they respond to Kaddish, and then as they would, standing, U'Mispalim Kol B'Lachsh, and everyone davens Shemon Esrei, still Shemon Esrei. He again repeats the Amidah as he did by Shachris, Ad Sheyashlim Kol HaTefillah, until he concludes the entire Shemon Esrei. Then V'Noifel Na'Pneim, they do again in Tefillas Apayim Meschan Magbi Aroshai. He first begs and is Mischana, and then he raises his head, Hu Vahem, and Mischana Mat Miyosha, as we said, also sitting, Keder Sha'asa B'Shachas in the same way, Va'omer Kaddish, Va'omer Kaddish, he gets up and says, Kaddish Chala'am Oinin Kedarkam, and Iftar L'Masem, and they have concluded Mincha. Now we're moving on to Ma'ariv Halacha Tez, Ba'erev Kolam Yoshvim. In the evening, everybody sits. Vu Oimed, only the Chazzan stands, and Va'omer, he says, V'hu Rachum, and he, the one that's compassionate, V'chulu, Baruch Hu Hashem HaMavorech, then he announces Baruch Hu Hashem HaMavorech, and they respond back, Baruch Hashem HaMavorech, and he starts Prisa Shema. V'omer Kaddish, this Kaddish is between Shema Sami Yisrael Ad and Shemoneh Esrei. It is with a Kaddish in the middle. And the Rambam doesn't mention the Kaddish before Baruch Hu, beginning of Ma'ariv. So he says, Kaddish, Oim Muspal B'lach Zidam the Shemoneh Esrei of Ma'ariv. Okshemashlim in Omer Kaddish, when they conclude Shemoneh Esrei, he says, Kaddish, and if time to go home, there's no Chazar Sashatz. Ve'ena Choyzel Isbal B'kol Ram Arvis, you don't repeat the Amid of Arvis, V'she'ein Tfil's Arvis Choyva, because Kilo, the Chazar Sashatz is for those that don't know how to read. And they're not responsive. You don't know how to read. You're not obligated, and because Ma'ariv is not chayva. Levich lo yivarech brachas v'atols. We don't want him to make brachas and vein. She'en kan adams in schayvim. We don't need to take anybody out of their obligation. Help them fulfill their obligation. Halacha Yud. And now we finish the regular weekday. We're moving on to Shabbos. Zok the Rambam. Halacha Yud. B'leili Shabbos. In the evening of Shabbos. In addition to the regular Ma'ariv, we said there's no Chazar Shasatz Ma'ariv. Shabbos is different. U'mispal b'kol ram. He davens out loud part of Shemoneh Esrei. However, aval ein mispal sheva. He doesn't say over the 7 brachas which are in the regular Shemoneh Esrei of Shabbos. Rather, el bracha achas mein sheva. It's one bracha that includes the concepts discussed in all the 7 brachas. He says the following: Baruch Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avosseinu, blessed are you, the Eibishter, our God, the God of our fathers. Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, namely the God of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Hakela Gadol, the great God, Hagibur, the strong one, Vadnoira, the awesome one, Kela Elyon, the aloof God, Koine Barachim Shemayim V'Aretz, the one that created with His compassion heaven and earth. Magen Avos B'Dvaro, He guards and shields our parents with His the Avos with His word, Mechayim Mesim Amar, with His utterances He awakens the dead and revives them. Hakela Kadosh Ein Kamoyu, the holy God that is no one that could compare to Him. Haminiach Lama B'Yem Shabbos Kadosh, the one that leaves His nation to rest on that Shabbos, Kivam Ratzal Aniachlam, because He wanted to allow them this pleasure. Lefon of Navad B'Yerav Afachad, in front of this God we serve in fear and trepidation. And will continuously praise B'chol Yom Tamid, every single day, Meina Brachas, with all types of brachas. Kelai Dois, the God of praises, Adonai Shalom, the Master of peace, Mekadesh HaShabbos, the one that sanctifies Shabbos, and Mevarech Shavi, and bless the 7th day, Maniach B'Kedush L'Amidosh Ne'ernik, and He allows in holiness His nation that should be satiated with pleasure and rest, Zeichel Masabrachis, in remembrance of the day of creation when the Eibusha rested. Elokeinu Elokei Avosseinu, our God, God of our fathers, please accept and find favor and appreciate our menucha, our resting. Chulu Baruch Hashem Kaddish Shabbos, blessed are you Hashem that sanctifies Shabbos. V'omer Kaddish, he says after this Kaddish, when Iftar and Kolam, they all go home. Frek the Rambam the Klotz Kasha. We'd have said you don't do Chazar Sashatz by Ma'ariv. Why was it Shabbos? Frek the Rambam Malach Yidal. V'lama tiknu Chachamim Zawai Chacham establishes V'nei Shadroiva Bayim Lispal Arbes B'lei Shabbos. Most of the congregation would come out to daven Shabbos by night. And there's bound to be people that come late and didn't finish davening in the same time as everyone else. And the shuls in those days were outside of the city, and therefore V'yishar Levade, he'll stay alone. Maybe he'll stay alone. He'll be in danger to walk home at night through the wilderness. He gives them that buffer by him repeating davening, so everyone stays to wait to answer these brachas, and then they'll have walking partners, even those that are ma'arech b'tefillah or they came late. Now, until the one that has come late will conclude and will go out together. Being that the case is only due to Shabbos, because regular nights they wouldn't come out. If they would come out, they would come out for mincha and do early ma'arech maybe. Zokter. Lefichach Yom Tov shechol yis b'Shabbos, if it's Yom Tov on Shabbos or Yom Kippurim or Rosh Chodesh. Ein shlich tzibur yered arvus v'ne'atev masker and yinayin v'brachazu. He doesn't mention Shabbos or Rosh Chodesh in the. Sorry, he doesn't mention Rosh Chodesh or Yom Tov in this Me'ein Sheva that we do after Tefillas Ma'ariv. He doesn't say Mekadosh Yisrael v'Azmanim. He says just Mekadosh Shabbos. Why? The obligation to do this this Me'ein Sheva of the Chazzan is only due to Shabbos, because that's when everyone would come out to Shul. And therefore, you only need to mention Shabbos. The Chiv didn't come from the day of Yom Tov. Halach Yud Gimel. B'Shabbos v'Yom Tovim k'shegoyim shliach tzibur tefillas Shachas. Now we're moving on to Shachas of Shabbos and Yom Tov. When he concludes, Shachas b'kol ram, Oimer Kaddish. He says Kaddish, v'chagach tilu, the David just says Ashrei. V'Oimer Kaddish, he says another Kaddish, and this one is before Musaf. You say Ashrei and then Musaf. U'mispal Musaf b'lachs v'chagach, mispal Musaf b'kol ram, he also repeats the Amid of Musaf, k'dei Hashas b'Shachas as he did in Shachas. V'Oimer Kaddish achat tefillas Musaf. He says another Kaddish after Musaf v'Am Niftarim, and the people go home. Ve'einam Kedusha v'Tachnunim achat tefillas Shachas k'shar Yam. You don't say Kedusha and Tachnun as you do on all other days. Tachnun for sure you wouldn't say. We don't mention our base, but also Kedusha. You don't say Volatzin. K'shar Yam ela Oimer koiden tefillas Mincha. You do it before Mincha. We say Kedusha. Keitzad, because that's when we would teach the nation. As we said, that was the goal of Volatzin, to teach the Sois for the Pashta people. And Bechlal Shabbos, after Mincha, that's when we say Tzidkoscha, that the rest of the world, when they eat and drink, they get a shikar. By Yidden, they sit down and learn. That's the time to say. Keitzad, Koyre Til David. He reads Ashrei, V'Omer Seid HaYom, which is, as we said, Volatzin, V'Divri Tachnun, V'Omer Kaddish. And after this Kaddish, which is before Kriyas HaTorah, Ram doesn't mention it here because he's talking about our tefillos. After this Kaddish, we read Shemon Esrei, we read Kriyas HaTorah, and then Yidav Mincha. B'choizum Ashmiat Tefillas Mincha B'Kol Ram. He repeats the Amid of Mincha out loud, V'Omer Kaddish, and concludes Tefillas Mincha. Final halacha for today. B'Rosh Chadashim V'B'Chol Shal Moed and Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed. Oimer say the Kedusha Koden Tefillas Musaf. He says it before Musaf, as we do. Right, we do it right after Kriyas HaTorah before. B'Matzei Shabbos, Omer say the Yom Gam Achat Tefillas Ha'erev. He says B'Chlal Matzei Shabbos. We say Volatzin, which he calls Say the Yom. Also after Ma'ariv Oimrim Kaddish, you say Kaddish, and only afterwards V'Chagach Mavdil. Then you do the Avdallah Ala Kois, in addition to the Avdallah that you did in the Siddur. Everybody have a wonderful Chag HaGeula Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz. Thank you so much for being part of our unique and special Chabura. Cruising through the entire Torah Shabbat Peh with the Rambam, and I'll lead one Perek a day. Yishikar to the team of technicians led by Rabbi Levi Nemirovsky. Thank you so very much.